June, but we just, as we had the data, we said it's a good opportunity while we have everybody here. So if you just give me 2 seconds here, I'm just going to share my slides. You might just let me know if you can actually see that then.
I can see them, Gavin. I hope everybody else can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So as I said, just top level data on the AHECS Graduate Market Survey, employer's perspective. So we have a couple of slides just to run through. So first, before we kick off, I just want to say just an enormous thank you to everybody who really pushed this survey this year with our employer network. Just kind of moving on to the first slide, right? Okay, you can see that we had 302 employer responses. That's a 50% increase on last year, so that's significant, right? Okay, I think it really puts a lot of strength to the data then that we're actually going to present to you then as well. So once again, thank you everybody from the services who really pushed this across the country, both actually the island of Ireland, but also then we have a lot of global responses then as well. Okay, so just kind of moving into the first level stuff, the organization type. Right, okay,
Sorry, Gavin, the slides aren't moving, so I don't know if you need to reshare or do you need to go into full screen mode.
Sorry, here, give me 2 seconds.
Mode with the slides, Gavin.
Yeah, I was in full screen there. Sorry.
Yeah, they're moving now.
Okay. Are they? Yeah. If I moved them, let me just see if I moved them here. Is that moving there for you? Is that moving now?
They're moving now. Yeah, they're moving. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, great. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, just a range of, we had 44% of large organizations involved. We had 49% sat in the SME sector, and then charitable non-for-profit was at 7%. So where the organizations were actually located, so that was majority, we're sitting in the east, that's at 35%, and then a spread across the country. And then obviously we will have national then as well, where they have multiple locations, sitting at 21%. The global predominantly was sitting in the UK, EU, and then Northern America was the third one there from that. But the EU was the highest representation, right? Okay, then the UK after that. Okay. So the sectors that we had representative was quite a broad range, right? Okay, the most significant one is professional, scientific, and technical activities, followed by manufacturing, and then information and communication. So probably just a note for this time next year that the professional, scientific, and technical activities sector, from a NACE perspective, has been retired. So we will see then. And the reason behind that is that I think 50% of employers who are categorized in that sit into a miscellaneous area, so that the sectoral spread then is not being represented, and they're probably going to try and push them into more, we'll call them generalized sectors that in the rest of the space here. Okay, so we will see some increase expected next year when we go to survey again. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to the next slide, which is around some of the placement data that we received.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thank you very much, Gavin. So this year we're presenting a little bit more data around the placement element of it. So really positive to see that, and similar to last year, that 60% of respondents are offering summer internships, and just under 74% are offering some form of work placement. And this, I suppose, bodes well for HEIs, given the HEI's strategy and policy around enhancing and offering work-based learning. Just a little bit more detail went into this year, and we can see that the length of placement, or the preference for respondents, is just in between the 6 and 12 month time frame. You wouldn't mind moving on, Gavin, to the next slide?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So in the next slide, we are just looking at sorry, I'm moving them up here myself, change in hire. So very positive as well that 70% of respondents will recruit more or the same number of placement students, so which is really good given the circumstances we're in at the moment in the pandemic. And only 1% of respondents are actually looking at cancelling their placement program. So very positive. And even the next one in relation to withdrawal of offers, given where we were last year to now, 64% said no, they aren't going to withdraw offers, and that was in around 33% last year, so that's doubled. And interestingly as well, those that said they are going to withdraw offers, that's currently standing at 16%, and that was up at over 30% last year. So you can see we're beginning to move out, and people are looking to the future, and maybe as well companies are just becoming more comfortable with remote working as well. So Gavin, if you wouldn't mind moving on. So conversion rates, and this for me is a really interesting slide. So you can see here that 37% of respondents convert their placement hires into graduate hires. And for me, this slide or this question really sort of brings out the why, you know, why are they hiring the students or why not? Is it employer-led? Is it student-led? And we looked as well, we sort of drilled down in the data a little bit more, and we looked at, is there any correlation with the organization? So the biggest number of conversion is in the professional, scientific and technical area, and followed by manufacturing activities as well, and they would be very strong in the graduate market, as we all know as well. But I do think this particular question does prompt more research for us, and it's a good area with this particular survey.
Okay, thanks, Anne. So just moved into the graduate side of the house, right? Okay, so the location of the graduate vacancies. No surprise that majority are sitting in the east at 53%, and then the spread across the rest of the country. Same again, right, in relation to that spread of the national, right, okay, there's multiple locations for many of the companies in different sectors. And then the 31%, right, okay, from a global perspective, once again, no surprise, EU, UK, North America. And then just in relation to those sectors, back to Anne's point in relation to the placement, the sectors that are most represented is professional, scientific, manufacturing, IT, and financial and insurance activities. And that's across, particularly in the East, definitely in the global, and then you can see a mix of those within the different regions as well, when we kind of break it down a small bit more. So probably just from average graduate salaries and trend and data that we have from the last 2 years, right? Okay, so from an undergrad perspective, we see an increase of the average salary as €1,000. When it moves up to master's level, then that goes up to just shy of €1,500 of an increase. And then PhD level, we see that has jumped to an increase of 3,000. So for this year, the expectation is sitting at 29,000 for an undergrad bachelor's degree, 32,807 for a master's, and then 35,000 for a PhD. Obviously, like any time, you'll have dips and troughs, as it were, in relation to different sectors, degree disciplines, etc., etc. So these are just average figures from that perspective. So we'll be doing a bit more deep dive on some of the data, like we did last year, in the 5 top sectors that reported out, and we'll present the average salaries within those sectors as well. But I have a sense that they won't be a million miles away from that, because of the way the response rates went. Okay. So just moving on to who should apply, and you can jump in.
Yeah, perfect. So very similar to last year, the top 3 sectors are engineering, business, and ICT. And interestingly, 12% of all respondents said they're looking at applications from all disciplines, and that's predominantly again within the professional, scientific, and technical activities, as well as the financial and insurance activity. If you wouldn't mind moving on there, Gavin. So looking at the application and selection tools and the preferences for employers, no surprise, and it comes up year after year again, that 84% looking at CV and cover letters. So, you know, interesting the discussion this morning around AI and looking at how we're managing our resources from a service perspective, the more on-demand we can offer around CV and cover letter, where that be your booklets, your online material, or using AI to screen CVs. It's really important because having a good CV and cover letter is really important for students going out in the market. And sometimes when we're working with students, you often get the CV or the interview in the assessment centre as being the piece that causes the most fear, and sort of forgetting the really important part, and that's your point to entry, which is your CV and cover letter. The majority of the rest have stayed static, stayed the same. There was no great increase there. Going on to the interview process. And yeah, no surprise, a massive increase in virtual interviews. So that has gone up by over 30%. Really interesting to see as we move out of this pandemic phase. Will this continue? What is the approach for recruitment going to look in the future? Is it going to be a hybrid? There has been a decrease in telephone interviews. Video interviews, interestingly, has only increased by 3%, but it is, you know, year on year gaining percentage in the market. So we're just around 40% of respondents are using pre-recorded video interviews, and all of us here, I think, will you know, share students' feedback in relation to not enjoying the pre-recorded interview. So a good using AI again to help students prepare for video interviews. There has been a drop in presentations and assessment centres. I do think that is probably because of the flip in going virtual, that some organisations didn't bring presentations and assessment centres to the virtual level. And there's no change in the pre-employment process in relation to reference checking and social media checks.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Anne. Okay, the next area that we looked at was just in relation to employers ranking. So how positively disposed they are to the following when they review applications. So the top one that comes out, no surprise probably, degree discipline, if they're recruiting towards particular roles, right? Okay, so that was kind of out quite far ahead of the other two, or the other six, right? Okay, or the other five, should I say, excuse me. 2 and 3, which was around completing a summer internship or work placement, and classification of degrees, scored very closely. So it was like a hair's breadth in a sense of the difference between the two of these. Okay, so and that hadn't changed significantly from last year. Okay, so 2 of them have always been very closely aligned. 4 and 5, same thing, a small bit below the 2 and 3, but equally very close together on their scoring around working to support themselves through college, and then additional independent learning undertaking. And then number 6, not a million miles. So when I say scoring, they're very close, but we have to kind of, there is a ranking from that perspective. But involvement in volunteering, club, society, sports whilst in college, very important, okay, from that perspective. Moving on then, okay, so then just in relation to graduate recruitment challenges, okay, so obviously COVID is, you know, I suppose in some ways we didn't possibly have to put that even there as a question, right, okay, or a selection. It's obvious that was going to be very significant for most, if not all. So what is new actually onto the top 6 this year, right? Okay, so we give them a selection of 12 to pick from. Okay, so what's new is the number 2, competition for graduate talent from other employers in your sector. So that was, I think, scored number 7 last year, so that was significant this year. Number 3 then, which was number of graduates, available graduates from specific degree skill sets, was number 3. Graduate expectations at entry level, right? Okay, number 4, and then work readiness level of graduates probably ties back a small bit to the kind of, when they review the CVs, that they look to see have they got summer internship or work placements completed before they go into the graduate market. And then number 6, which wasn't on the score, or sorry, in the top 6 last year, was competition for graduate talent from other employers outside their sector, right? Or what they would normally see as their sector. So that has jumped significantly. I think it was number 8 last year, and it's into number 6 this year. Okay, so
just conscious of time here, guys, so we have a few minutes left in this
we
session.
have, yeah, thanks, Trevor. We have 3 slides left, and we'll jump off then. Yeah, thanks. A new question that we asked this year was in relation to languages, any languages that they particularly required as part of their graduate recruitment. Top two were French and German. So these were not EU-based companies that responded to this. This was our national-based, Ireland-based companies. So the French and German, the two sectors there that predominantly kicked in were professional, scientific, and manufacturing. Actually, were the two that came up for the French and German. Obviously, there was other sectors that had, but they were the highest scoring one. And then obviously Spanish, Chinese, Italian, and Dutch came in as part of that in the top 6 as well. So just some questions we asked in relation to COVID, right? Okay, have you withdrawn any graduate offers that you've already made? So this has gone up on the no, which is a good sign, right? Okay, compared to last year, right? Okay, so a lot more confidence come back into returning to some sort of normality, but also then that remote working and the ability to be able to support the onboarding of new grads is a strong kind of message there from that perspective. The second graph there, right? Okay, do you anticipate deferring the start date of graduate hires? Okay, no, 16%. Or 61%, same thing. It kind of relates to the positions, but also then that they're confident on their onboarding abilities. And then 22 graduate recruitment, their campaigns. So it looks like 56, strong amount actually pushing forward with their dates. They don't see any impact, and I suppose they've had a year to get themselves back on track as well, right? Okay, but equally, I have noticed just from our own service that there is an enormous amount of graduate opportunities actually being advertised now, right, at the moment, which we probably would have seen back in that kind of January, February previously, but it looks like there's a lot more confidence from that perspective. Okay, here we go. Last slide, Dan.
Thanks, Gavin. So we're just looking at the global technical skills and global soft skills here. So analytical thinking and self-motivated are the same as they were last year. So they're the top 2 in the global technical skills. Collaboration actually has moved up in the global technical skills. So moving on to the soft skills, and positive attitude is still number 1, and that was number 1 as well last year. Interestingly, I think it's probably a reflection of where we've been, but the ability to cope with pressure has moved up, and so has and while work ethic has come down, and I just think that is reflecting back where we have been over the last 12 months.
Okay, thanks, Anne. Okay, so that brings our whistle stop tour, as it were, to an end. A lot of data there, I know, and we have much more to kind of publish into June when it comes down to the 5 top sectors that responded as well. So as I said, next steps will be publication available in June. We will do a webinar with the employer partners. The date is yet to be decided, but if we can get it this side of the summer, that would be fantastic. If not, we'll push towards an August before the term starts then as well. So thank you everybody for listening. I know we're very short on time, so I think what we'll do is we'll just bring this one to an end, and we'll invite Gavin then in to present on the awards. Okay.
Thanks, Gavin. Hopefully you can see and hear me okay.
I can, yeah, perfectly. Thanks, Gavin. So